welcome back to the show. It is, I'm going to double check. Yeah, it's Friday. It is Friday. TGIF. Hope you're doing well out there. Hope you're not looking at the price charts. I don't know what they are. Honestly, don't tell me. I don't know what the price is. I can see the Goblin Town on Twitter, and I'm like, I'm not even doing it. I'm not going to look. You may not even say go. You may not even see Go Pulse today as well. I don't think I can click enough buttons to make it show green. So we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. However, as the title suggests, still believe, and a lot of people in the ecosystem believe, PulseChain will rip faces off. High caution on that as well. So be careful. Don't wreck yourself. We'll get into it too. Put your questions in the chat. Today, for the first time, we got a gentleman on I have not had, but I got to meet in Vegas. So excited to have him here to go through some pretty bullish stuff and everything else that's going on in the community. But anyways, without further ado, welcome to the show for the first time, Twinkie. How's it going, sir?
Hey, doing all right, Max. How are you doing today, man? Thanks for having me on.
Doing good. You prefer Mr. Twinkie, Mr. Angry Twinkie, or just Twinkie?
Yeah, so let me give you the relatively short backstory, maybe for some of the folks who aren't familiar with me. I see a few familiar names in chat. Good to see y'all rolling through. So yeah, Twinkie, it certainly works, or Mr. Angry Twinkie or whatever. So the running gag is it's because I'm half Asian, so yellow on the outside, white on the inside. So I get a kick out of it. So I actually used the name like Twinkie for decades. And I went to register on some services Twinkie, and it was already taken. So that turned into, hey, what the hell type situation. And you had to have the salutation, Mr., Mrs. So, between my irritation and the salutation, it turned into Mr. Angry Twinkie, which turns out is not claimed just about anywhere. So I was able to successfully grab that on Twitter, YouTube, Telegram, and everywhere. It just ended up sticking. But yeah, most people just call me Twinkie for short, just to make it nice and convenient. But glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, shocking that Mr. Angry Twinkie wasn't taken on X already. I know, like when I was trying to tag you too, I was like, is it Twinkie? Is it Mr. Twinkie? And I was like, Angry Twinkie, and then I finally got it. But no, awesome, man. Well, for especially first time people be on the show, can you give people kind of a little bit of background of like how'd you come across this ecosystem? Like what got you into crypto? We'll get into PulseChain. We got a few interesting comments and questions in the chat. But how'd you get in this crazy place, man? Why are you still here?
Yeah. Like many other folks, kind of embrace crypto. So quick stroll down memory lane. 2017, I'm hearing all about this ETH thing. I think I better throw a few dollars into it. So I think I bought ETH at 400, wrote it up, wrote it down, typical story for a lot of folks there. And I was like, all right, well, if I sell now, it's definitely taking a loss on this one. But the whole idea sounds interesting. I don't want to take the loss. I'm just going to let it sit there and ride. Fast forward, pandemic, 2020, 2021, very illuminating in certain respects to how things work in the world, whatever I may think about how the world should work. Like, here's the reality of the situation. You either have the power and freedom or you do not. So decided, hey, I wanted to leverage some of my brain power and finances into other types of investments. Cryptocurrency looks like the fastest horse. That ultimately led me to Dollar Cost Crypto and Cultivate Crypto, joining their crypto mindset program, initially onboarded into Hex, and then later on into PulseChain, PulseX, and the broader RH ecosystem. So that's how I wound up where I am today. Fast forward, a number of years later, hey, you and I are meeting up at Pulse 369, having some conversations about Richard Hart ecosystem, AI, music, and the like. And so, it was good to get to know you over a few drinks and hang out with some folks at the event. And that's how I wound up here on your channel today.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like the in-person events, and we talked about Charlie and Miguel and their system and getting into that. They've onboarded so many people I've came across that are in the community, being productive, just doing all kinds of stuff, come from those courses, and a lot of people they know, and they've helped come up in the space and introduced to PulseChain or otherwise. So again, shout out to Charlie and Miguel, and they're just they're killing it. We had a great time in the studio. I know everyone's seen that stream by now. I'm pretty sure if you haven't, then you have not been paying attention to X or YouTube. You're not subscribed for the last few days as well, because I posted on my channel. I think Maddie posted as well. Some people have literally commented just out of not even on conversation, like, oh, great stream. Somebody told me that I think they watched it twice. That was last year. So when I did it last year, when I was in Vegas as well, and coffee and and a lot of other people were on as well. I thought that was the mega conversation. But boy, I don't know. Last year's conversation was still pretty good too. Right before the markets decided to tweet that sent shockwaves to the ecosystem. But this year, yeah, I'm glad you could join us for that. And yeah, had a great conversation for itself. Shout out to SJ and Kaylin and RG3 and everyone else who helped with that. It's been a great show.
Yeah, and definitely an improvement over last year too. I was talking with Kaylin at SJ. I was like, hey, you're making improvements, and as a attendee and let's say unexpected panelist this year, I can definitely see the improvements over time. So glad that they're taking feedback and learning, hey, this is what worked well last year, this is what didn't work well, and we're going to make these tweaks for the next go around. So yeah, it was a great time. Really strong community too for PulseChain, in the sense that we had people from all over the world traveling to the conference. And one of the things that really stuck out in terms of what I noticed when I was just like looking around the room, I was like, oh, streams, very active on X, stream. Just a quick back of envelope math. I was like, probably a good fifth of the people in the room, give or take, just people present, stream and post content with a high degree of regularity in some way, shape, or form. So very vocal and active community participation as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's through the bear market, through whatever market we're going through now, without the ton of green candles that are consistent up and to the right, there's still a ton of people who believe in this place. Again, live streaming, creating content, going out. Shout out to actually, let me put his deal on the page. Dirty Crypto. Shout out to him. He's been killing it ever since Richard talked about, hey, talk to exchanges deal. This guy, and this is not even one of his tweets. If you go to his profile, he's got a ton of just engagement with centralized exchanges and with what is the Phantom Wallet. I know there's like a support ticket. If you all haven't seen this tweet, you can go there. You can upvote it. I think we're like number one. Yeah, number one most requested on PulseChain. Ever since Richard talked about the ZK P2P protocol, which I speculated, are we gonna fork it? Is that the next product coming, or are they gonna add support for it to PulseChain? We've got a ton of people. I mean, look at this, just a ton of engagement, ton of views, and yeah, this guy's working hard. So yeah, just quick shout out to Dirty Crypto. Working hard. It's a little bit easier when the prices are going up up and to the right, but when they're not, it's you got to be motivated by something else other than just green candles to still be working and trucking at this point. So it's amazing. Just see these community members do this stuff.
And if you're not planning on selling it today, what are you worried about, right? Like we have so much more headroom in the grand scheme of things. So, it's one of the things I think that the PulseChain and Richard Hart community has done a very good job of, is holding the line. In many ways, I think I actually saw it on like a Star Wars animated episode like 2 decades ago, but the line always stuck out in my brain, which was, belief is not about faith. Belief is about conviction. And I've told other folks in different conversations and circles, hey, Richard's got a habit of making his haters and opposition look very, very foolish. Whatever your personal opinion may be about him or PulseChain or anything else, I think he's got a track record which ultimately speaks for itself. Doubt the man, hate on the man at your own peril. It is unwise to bet against Richard Hart. For sure. Like I don't know why people, it's so easy. Again, maybe this, there's emotional, we've been waiting for years type of thing. There's this, he hasn't live streamed and, all these other coins are going up and down. And that was kind of like the thing a while back. It's like, oh, look, Solana went up to $200 some. And like, why aren't we going up type of deal? There's plenty of reasons to come up with, to be like, oh, this is just not going to work. But at the same time, again, I don't know how many streams I've did, other people have done. You see the content creation coming out every day about all the bullish aspects, all the pent up potential that we have in the ecosystem. And you do the work, right? Like I think that it's one of the key, most amazing things about this ecosystem is everyone is aligned to make glory happen. Like we're all aligned, whether it is monetarily or it's, you like status, you like, being the best, this or that, you like people to like you or whatever it is, or you just want to make a contribution in the community. You like to see things grow. You want to start a business, again, with Charlie Miguel, they have the crypto mindset and they're able to, do business and stuff around crypto and heavily involved in PulseChain as well. Like whatever it is, there's a place for you to take your talent to be part of a community that, again, we like the tech and the price appreciation.
And a lot of people haven't given up on the second one, but it's I don't know. I feel like we have one of everyone, and it's just so hard to me. It's I don't know. I think I just think differently about these things. I have a different, I came from a different background. I have a different, watching Richard since 2017 and just being aligned with the whole deal of like, his ideals and a maxi for his ideals and stuff too. It's much easier for me to just be like, yeah, whatever. And I can wait too. But, I know a lot of people out there, they're either struggling financially or they're just, they didn't quite understand the delayed gratification part of a lot of this stuff too, or they're just unsure about all the legal stuff. And we beat the SEC, why can't we beat Interpol and everything else as well? But hang in there. If you feel like your face has been ripped off in the wrong direction, I certainly hope it goes in the right direction at some point. Just like this first comment, by the way.
Yeah, and how much sweeter is it going to taste when you pull out the W in the grand scheme of things, right? Like
exactly.
Punched, kicked, spit on, knocked down. Watching the charts and whatever else. Again, if you're not planning on selling at this instant, don't worry about it. Sit tight. Yeah. I think I'm convinced very good things are coming, and we'll get into some of the whys as far as what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Well, just off the bat too, this the first comment in the chat was I assume talking about the title, Rip Faces All, it will not. What maybe you could, I don't know what do you say when you see people either just literally just not believing that PulseChain can do these things, can do the thing where, Hex went down 97%. And, we all hope it goes up hundreds and thousands of X's and all this stuff too. What is it that the non-believers have in common that like hasn't been quite harnessed that you've found the ability to be like, no, I think I'm going to place my bets in this direction. I like this place.
So for myself, something like that, I just look at the math behind the opportunity. And I said, okay, it's such an asymmetrical bet in my personal situation, but Smagaz, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. I do find it fascinating where, Max, you've got PulseChain will rip faces off and his avatar is somebody with what looks like a ripped off face plastered over his. So that kind of makes me laugh. Yeah, the irony is palpable.
Yeah. It's well, again, it could be the ripped off face as far as like, oh no, all my money went away. But it's only, I don't know, everyone probably is tired of this at this point, but it's only a loss if you sell, right? Like that type of deal. I don't know. It is one of those, like, I think long-term mindset, the ability to, again, know Richard as his mission, like, what he's about before. A lot of people got introduced to him through, outrage marketing and stuff, which was a phase that some people enjoyed and some people enjoyed less of. And just, I don't know, like, again, just talked about betting against this guy. It isn't, I think if you just assume he's a scammer and you assume that this ecosystem is just full of people who just want to take your money and they don't want to build something from the ground up. I don't know if I don't know, like I've been paying attention for quite a while now. And I've seen the amount of organic projects that have either been built from scratch, new code, or forked, taking all the things on ETH that we could use on PulseChain. The amount of stuff that hasn't even been released yet, the amount of community projects that have been worked on, the amount of capital that has been put in this ecosystem, not just as far as like liquidity and all that stuff too, but the amount of people that have devs and just making products and like can't stop building in the ecosystem, that kind of gives me some idea of like, wow, this place, again, it's not, when am I going to quit? When I look around and no one else is here, right? I don't see people I see people being upset from time to time, but I still see all these projects launching on PulseChain. So to me, that's always a good signal when you see new stuff coming out all the time too. So even when the price is down, if you're still building on the chain because you believe in it and you believe in the potential and you believe in, everything you've seen so far, I don't know, it's one of those things I think is pretty motivating.
And so one of the other things that stuck out at me too, as far as the conference this year, were the number of returning attendees, but also the number of returning presenters, right? And I think there's a big difference between, hey, we attempted and we were unsuccessful versus it's an outright rug and we're just trying to value extract and screw over the community. There were a great number of presenters that came back and they're like, oh, we've evolved the product, or we launched that thing and now we're expanding out the product or services or the offering by the team. Shout out to the Project Pi guys. I thought some of the AI stuff and agent stuff they were presenting was very exciting for the ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, what rug ecosystem has conferences every year and multiple? Like, it's not even just Pulse 369. You got, I mean, Maddie runs, I think, both the PulseChain and Hex conferences as well. So at least I feel like we have at least three relatively large conferences per year. We're going for the world record for most YouTubers on stream or something at one point. I mean, wherever you're trying to hit world records, and just because the price is down, it's like it gives everyone that feeling that like something is off, something is bad. I don't know. I think that's just, it reminds me too, the price you pay for volatility is the price you pay for the world's most best performing assets. It is one of those things that doesn't quite hit until you go through it. And it's like, oh, wow, this is what the bottom feels like. This is what delayed gratification feels like. This is what, being with your back against the wall, everyone telling you, not everyone, but like, a big section of crypto being like, we don't want you here. You suck. You, just finally die and go away. I'm like, no, we're not going to do that, because I think we're supposed to win. And I mean, that's why I spend a lot of time and energy here, at least. Dick here says, I find it hilarious that most of the crypto space is fudding, saying the bull market's over. Bull run hasn't even started yet, in my opinion. I feel like you survived these lows. Yeah. What is your thesis as far as the macro and the markets in general? Are we, do you still think we're on 4-year cycle? We'll actually, go into some crazy bull run up to the end of the year. Has something changed? Like, what is your feeling on that?
Yeah. So I'm a believer a lot of it has to do with overall global liquidity on that front. And I know China said the other week they're going to be injecting $894 billion of liquidity into their financial system. If I step back for a second, because there's all these European Central Bank and all these other things, let me take a step back. If I just look at the US, since I live in the US and I'm most familiar with the US, we have roughly $9 trillion worth of debt that needs to get paid or refinanced. And so I know there's some folks who are concerned about the market, S&P 500, how that may carry over to crypto. So $9 trillion between here and the end of the year, roughly speaking, that needs to get paid or refinanced. Of that 9 trillion, approximately 7 trillion of that is very heavily front loaded. So it's really 7 trillion over the next several months that needs to get paid or refinanced. So personal opinion is, when you hear Trump talking about tariffs, and it's kind of going off like clockwork. Threat of tariffs are enacted. Oh, they're suspended, 30-day reprieve. 30 days later, tariffs, rinse, repeat. And look, some of them will go through, some will not. It's certainly a negotiating tactic. Why? Realistically speaking, I believe that his administration, before he was voted into the office, came to the conclusion that there was only one real viable play on the table. They need to find a way to force rates to come down. So be it through Doge, laying a bunch of people off, which is going to have a series of impacts that'll show up in the GDP, potentially unemployment numbers, creating a certain level of uncertainty in the stock market, which will force people into bonds and the like. It's going to ultimately, the game plan is force the rate down so they can refinance that debt. And as part of that, I also expect to hear things like quantitative tightening by the Fed to be halted, which doesn't necessarily mean we're going to immediately go to money printing. It just means they're going to stop shrinking down the balance sheet on that front. I anticipate hearing that by middle of the year, quite frankly. I don't think they're going to say it at the meeting that comes up on the 19th, but I anticipate hearing it probably in the June meeting. So in aggregate, when I start looking at all that stuff, okay, China's already said, hey, we're going to inject some more liquidity, a little short of $1 trillion on current trend. In the US, we have this massive debt that needs to get paid or refinanced, has to get refinanced. The rates are significantly higher than where the debt was accrued, so they need those rates to come down. They're also going to end quantitative tightening. So when I look at the overall crypto market, keep in mind, we were putting in these new all-time highs and had this upward trend and run really since late 2022. It's been a pretty solid grind upward in an environment of quantitative tightening. What do you think is going to happen when the tightening stops and potentially they turn the money printers on? To me, it seems pretty much like there's only one real direction we can head. I'm not going to sit here and profess, hey, there won't be some chops and drops and things won't get a little more uncomfortable, but I see no reason at this point in time to say, the music's stopping. My mind is I'm going to keep DCing in and it's just hurry up and wait.
It feels, I don't know. Yeah. I almost feel like, at least to me, like I treat all the stuff, all the volatility and stuff recently, all the stock market stuff, I just treat it as noise. I really, and it's just my personal view of it. I'm like, there's too many things that are way too bullish. This administration is pro crypto. There's launch of meme coins, Don Jr.'s speaking at ETH conferences. It's like, who is taking, I don't know. I always try not to criticize at the same time. I'm like, I can't understand people take it seriously that, could there be some down action? Could there be, some other, chop, like you said, throughout the year and stuff like that. But next 12 months, I don't know. I think it's unreasonable that the bull market won't do something interesting. Not financial advice, of course, but it's like, I don't know. That would be very strange and very odd and very much against like what we've seen in the last few months as far as all the fundamentals setting up in a good way. So just want to give a shout out to apparently it's a Robert Love. 250. So wore a hex shirt during some of the videos he did. I don't know. I haven't watched the videos, but I'm not sure why he's wearing the hex shirt, but I like it. And interesting, where we've got from time to time we get like big people with big followings that in some way signal about the hex token. So and this is when everyone back against the wall. Everyone's no one cares to support. That one, where the price chart went down, that type of thing. Imagine if the price chart goes up. We start crypto banter. Randman has something to talk about. Ivan on Tech starts, instead of up only for Bitcoin, he starts saying up only for PulseChain. Like, how do you think the people are going to come out of the woodwork when they actually, I guess, have a reason to? Right now, it's like, what are they going to talk about? How the price is down. But when the price is up and there's, if it's doing 10, 20, 30x and stuff like that, you think they'll be able to, especially the ones who have bags, why wouldn't they just start being like, oh yeah, of course, look at this thing, everyone, please buy so I can get some more X's.
Yeah, please be my exit liquidity. All jokes aside, I take a step back and I look at it and I recognize, okay, certain folks that have far bigger followings than I do, right? Far bigger followings than you do. They've got their own brand, right? And so they need a certain level of engagement and reactions and the like from the audience. Certainly, I think some of those communities or some of those KOLs or key opinion leaders or whatever you want to call them, influencers, they are incentivized to behave in such a way to get a little bit. You were mentioning earlier Richard's outrage marketing times prior. They want you to be emotionally reactive and comment, make that angry comment. Hey man, screw you. Like PulseChain #1. That's what they want in the grand scheme of things. Do I think they ultimately come around? Absolutely. Green candles tend to resolve all situations for all people, over time. So yeah, I definitely think folks like Rand, Ivan, other haters, doubters, or people who have been significantly critical will ultimately come around. In my mind, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
That'll be a fun day. It'll definitely, we're already, our content creators don't need a whole lot these days. I feel like Richard always gives some good content too. There are times where I'm like, what's there to talk about? I can talk about all the bullish narratives I've talked about 500 times before. I try to like really bring some more fresh content. Every once in a while, it is kind of like, we're just kind of, the price, we're just waiting from time to time. And then he'll pop in, and especially the last few weeks, especially after, don't forget everyone, we beat the SEC, fair and square, beat the SEC. And that wasn't just jurisdiction. It was because the case had no merit as well. So every once in a while, I'll give some stuff to talk about. And especially on the technical side, I love to dig into that too. But what do you think? I think it's an interesting comment from Billy Bob here too. Why no Richard? He won. Say something, dude. Do you think, everyone's like, 13 more days. What is it? It's probably 6 more days. What are we at now? For the period, was it 20 days or something after?
For a potential rebuttal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think, and again, I'm going to say I don't know. I almost don't care at this point when he streams again or if he streams again. But do you think we'll see something, whether it's streaming, whether it's a launch? Do you think something will happen after that period?
Sometime after that period, yes, but I'm not convinced it's going to be like, like the stroke of midnight, 3, 2, 1, go. It's very well possible, right? Like, and there may be something pre-recorded that gets pushed out versus a live stream. As far as I know, that Interpol red notice is still active. And so if I'm Richard, I'm still going to be very careful about what kind of information is being revealed as far as any sort of video, sound, anything that could potentially dox my location while that thing is still potentially hanging over me. Now, granted, Richard and his legal team may not care. They may feel like, hey, we've got this one in the bag. We'll find out soon enough. But that's kind of the one thing I would have running in the back of my brain is, okay, if I start streaming video content where I'm actually on camera, what could potentially give away my location while this red notice is still active? Which I believe is completely unfounded too, by the way. I think that red notice is quite frankly bullshit. But anyway, that's why I think that is my opinion on why he's not yet streaming. So they'll be getting fully free and clear of this, which to your point, yes, we defeated the SEC in court, but there's still also this secondary element running in the background. So until everything is super free and clear, no strings attached, I personally do not expect to see Richard live streaming. We might get some form of pre-recorded video content though.
I don't know if you noticed, he brought back the middleman D phrase. I haven't heard that for a while in a tweet that I remember. At least he's abbreviating these days. Used to, it would be, there's so many words, the D word, the R word, many of the words that I've heard for a while, especially either in text or in streaming, which, those were the days.
The fun words, yeah.
Yeah, all the ones that, get the people going in so many different ways as well. This one, so speaks to the blockchain. It speaks through tweets from time to time. This one, and there was a previous one where it was like, was he talking about how basically exchanges, and he was talking about how basically we need more competition in certain areas. Does this feel like something's heating up? We had pump.tires, again, not still kind of unofficial project of PulseChain devs or RH or otherwise. And then again, he's talking a lot about this privacy platform, kind of like an on-off ramp. He's talked about exchanges a lot. Again, this is something that's even before. I don't know if you saw the list of like dev stuff to do or the list of ideals. He's talked about exchange with its own stablecoin. I keep feeling like there's something. I don't know. It seems like he's hinting in some way that either something is coming or something to do with exchanges. I don't know if you've been keeping up with it, but what is your sense of, will we see an RH exchange? Will we see like some kind of DeFi hybrid type deal, maybe like something around the ZK P2P? Should we expect to see more products and stuff coming from the team, whether official or not, where they're like, it appears this new on-ramp has joined us? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm sure that Richard and team have assorted aces up their sleeves, some of them being a little more obvious than others, in the sense that I'm sure things like single-sided staking for potentially PulseX or the like could be rolled out at any moment in time if they so choose. Now, whether or not in 2025 they sit there and say, hey, that might have been a great solution for 22, 23, 24, that window of opportunity has passed, we're going to move in a different direction, unknown. Do I think they have a number of plays that they can drop on us at any point in time? Absolutely. Yes, I've seen some of the chatter about, hey, maybe Richard's going to have his own bank and or exchange or like, and how do we go about facilitating that? Much like the blockchain and crypto ecosystem works today, in the sense that it's not a single solution, there are multiple solutions and a web of solutions to get you from point A to point B. I would anticipate future state being a combination of all those things. Now, maybe it's a direct technical hybrid. Maybe it's a combination of referrals like, hey, I don't do that. Let me refer you to OX Coast for the bank side of things, or let me refer you to Max's exchange on that one. And so it's not a direct, direct control element. It's a referral, a network of referrals to drive the desired outcome. I certainly see that as being a possibility as well. But given some of those tweets, to me, it seems like, all right, what's the dude's play? We rocking with our own exchange or what?
Yeah, I was going to pull up because, what was it? BitMEX was talking about how they're looking for buyers or something. So there was some scatter. There was some conversation around what it would be called, and somebody said BitHex. We bought BitMEX and called it BitHex. And then I was trying to find the poll. I had all the choices. Let's see. By the way, I love this tweet. We made it. I knew it wasn't over. We have a slight green candle on the 1 minute chart. Let me find the deal. Man, this guy tweets a lot and retweets, doesn't he? I do like this thumbnail. That was a really good one.
That is a pretty slick one.
Right.
I'm assuming some sort of like image generation tool.
Yeah. So funny enough, you stream on YouTube. So if you go to if you're in YouTube Studio, there's the inspiration tab now. I don't know if you came across it, but you can type stuff in. It'll basically give you, image generation for this stuff. And I think this one came from that. It's just like, hexagonal bull, in certain style, you could say stuff like that. Just keep hitting regenerate, and eventually it'll do some stuff. And this one had the breaking of the chains, which I thought was pretty cool too.
Yeah, it is a cool one. Yeah, I've definitely tinkered with some of those, like Mid-Journey, Grok, and whatever. Sometimes it's fun to give them different prompts to see how similar or dissimilar they are as far as the image that they are spitting out.
Yeah, and this one, Google's been building a lot of stuff in their AI into YouTube and everything else. So
there you go.
That's the one that makes it easy, especially for creators. Hey, I need a thumbnail, and it'll just go create one. Yeah, so BitHex got the most votes. That's not a lot of votes for this one, but BitHex, and then I thought of PulseX, which sounds way too similar to PulseX, and you never be able to say it like without confusing the two, unless you literally said PulseCX, which could be a thing too. Free money. I just made that one up. Yeah, that'd be cool if we bought BitMEX turned into. I could totally see that because. What was it? I think I clipped something else where Richard was talking about how acquisitions are talking something about acquisitions, and it really, I think around this conversation too, really made me think, wow, because we talked a lot about before buying an exchange or building one or otherwise. So I always kind of in the back of my mind thought, okay, if I see that he's acquired one or his entities or otherwise have acquired one and started running it, that would be interesting. But if you took one that already had a big brand, and especially, to be like, no, we're going to call it BitHex now. I don't know. That would be that'd be a cool thing to happen in the ecosystem as well.
Yes, I don't know where BitMEX is based out of, and I can't sit here and profess to have any sort of experience with a merger or acquisition of an exchange or the like. But from my other life, I've done
That's where they're based, apparently.
Seychelles. Yeah, it must be, right? Like, ask, Google or ask Perplexity, right? Like, where is that thing?
I feel like I know all the countries. I've never heard of this one. Okay, it's in Africa. Okay.
An island nation, northeast. Interesting. Yeah, not familiar with that one either. But in my experience, having been through other sorts of acquisitions and it's not necessarily a fast process. So again, I haven't done it for a crypto exchange, no real experience, certainly not in that locale. Maybe it is a much faster process there. My experience in North America has been that's generally not a quick process. You have many months of due diligence, research, and then okay, where this deal is proceeding forward or no, it's not. So
I wouldn't think it'd happen in America. I wouldn't think if it happens, I would suspect it would happen in Europe somewhere. There's it's all kinds of more lenient regulatory states accessible to Europeans, I imagine too. A lot of people go through what is Gibraltar. You got the Bahamas. You got a bunch of different stuff like that too. So I wonder if it would be. You got this country which I don't even know how to pronounce. Seychelles. Is that
good
French,
enough for me?
I guess I don't know. So. Yeah, I could see it probably not having, although funny, ironically, it's probably easier to launch crypto companies in America now since we have the new administration too. Yeah.
We'll see how it plays out. Again, I think there are a lot of plays on the table, and quick tangent would be one of the things that drives me nuts about certain aspects of the Richard Hart community, and not in a positive way, is that not everyone, just to be crystal clear here, there's a large number of people who are like, oh, Sack Daddy is going to pump my bags, right? And I know there's the adage of not expecting profit and from the work of others. What if that doesn't happen? What is your plan as a community to help drive onboarding, drive adoption, drive use of the chain and of the solution on PulseChain and other Richard Hart solutions and products? So I dislike the idea of, hey, Sack Daddy's going to pump my bag. I'm open to it. I'm not complaining about it. I have no expectation of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's my position pretty much is, it's a nice to have. It's an obvious why wouldn't it happen type of deal. Again, we don't know when or where or how, but it is definitely mentioned the other day too. What is it? Through the Hex AA, it's not just, you got hundreds of millions of dollars with SAC funds, and then which are in Ethereum right now. So that could go, they're not in a stable coin. So yeah, they could go lower. They could go much, much higher, could turn to billions of dollars. That's what people would like to happen. For example, so that way it could turn into this massive, liquidity event or buying event or whatever. That's kind of the dream, to have this type of wealth come in the ecosystem. But there's also from the Hex AA, that was like, I need to look it up. It's either 500,000 or 1 million ETH came in through that, which I think is like already at today's prices with ETH is already like $1 billion, maybe $2 billion if it was 1 million ETH. So, and that's the stuff that is, public that we could see and stuff like that. I don't think, and again, the whales who like our ecosystem, whether it's RH or otherwise, if they're in it for glory, if they're in it to make sure, again, community puts in the work, we make all this stuff happen. The community's been building and launching projects and marketing and all that stuff too. If they want to help, I think that's great. I think it's awesome. I think it makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, being reliant on that, like, oh, I'm not going to do anything until I see the SAC funds move. I mean, that's just kind of like, I don't know. I feel like that's the opposite of why this place exists. It's kind of like, and I think, you could even see with Richard talking about the exchange listings and in the different commentary from time to time, being like, hey, get off your ass and start doing stuff. Like, do not wait on, don't wait on anyone to come pump your bags. That's not what this place was founded on. It was founded on a hard work ethic, DeFi principles, and being a force for good in the world. So yeah, I think it's unfortunate that, and I get it too. I get it. A lot of people, again, been waiting a long time. You feel like you put in enough work. No, I'm done. I'm just going to sit here and when I see the green candles, then I'll come back. Yeah, I think it sucks. The incentives are that way, to kind of sit back and just hopefully some whales will come and pump the bags. There's all kinds of mixed emotions in it too, but I don't know. I think I'm here to make a contribution and I'm here to win. And to do that, I don't know, it just doesn't sit with me that, no expectations. I have no obligations to anyone in the ecosystem and in the world, as far as the crypto stuff goes. So I could, if you ever see me log off and not come back, hopefully they'll be like, yeah, he did a good job. He did, he was good while he was here. But, and I put that on everyone else too. Like, I don't have any expectations. Any streamers who have stopped streaming, any people that stop posting, everyone's got their own lives. Everyone's doing their own thing. I wish everyone matters to gains either way. But I think that's just not, making a contribution and making sure this place wins is very important to me, as you may well see. So I think putting in the work is what makes this place great. So hopefully everyone will have something to rally around. Hopefully we'll get some green candles. Hopefully it'll be a lot easier to do that because it hasn't been lately. So I get that part.
And I think people are looking for certain opportunities because it's tough times out there, right? In the grand scheme of things. And I don't think anyone's particularly surprised by that. There's some certain macroeconomic concerns. As far as future states, one of the things I was actually talking about with Charlie, Cultivate Crypto, we were at the nighttime golf event over by the driving bays. And my stance is, at this day and age, much like yourself, I don't really expect people to stream or not, or like I have no expectations. I am owed nothing. I'm entitled to nothing as far as I'm concerned. And one of the things that I think I've done a much better job of dealing with as I've gotten older is generally surrounding myself with people who want something for me versus somebody who wants something from me. Not saying I don't mind sharing, giving, or, like people can't have certain expectations or whatever else, but very generally, broadly speaking, people who want something for us versus some people who want something from us.
Yeah, and it's not like we can avoid. There's going to be whales who want to extract stuff from the ecosystem. There's going to be people who are net negative. They're going to be bad actors, or at least bad actors in your perspective. Don't sell. Why are you selling? Oh, they're dumping on your heads. It's like, maybe they just want to take profit. Like anyone who sells, I'm totally agnostic to the idea that like they're personally like dumping on my head. Like that whole idea is so weird to me. It's like, are there times where, people are doing it intentionally or some other way? But in general, I'm like, you acquire the tokens, you make your own decisions. And it's just like how every market works. So I never really read much into that. But before we get into this question, which I know you got some data on as well, this one's, I think it's interesting from Vocero. Thanks for the question. Comment basically. What utter BS? Who are going to onboard with these charts? That is a question I've been asking for the last couple of years. Without green candles, how do we get people in the ecosystem? I have a few ideas and a few comments on it as well. But what do you think in the meantime? Again, until we get consistent, straight up and to the right green candles that cannot be ignored, how do we get people in this place?
Good question. So the broader onboarding. And I think a lot of that depends on what speaks to the person you are potentially attempting to onboard or bring into the ecosystem. Sure, all of us want mad gains. That's the most obvious answer. Green candles definitely help drive that through FOMO, or certain folks are going to be like, hey, I'm watching for the breakout. I'm going to trade and play the momentum. Totally understand that. If I fast forward and take a look at what other sorts of things are out there, potentially, a huge part of it goes, in my mind, I would say goes without saying, but maybe it does need to be said, is the community. Not just from the broader collective streaming community, KOLs, influencers, people engaging with you on Twitter, but community by way of development firepower. I think we all saw the number of projects and developers who are mingling, co-mingling, talking about things at the conference, problem solving, and the like. We see the notion of, in my mind, PulseChain is a very decentralized chain by way of validators, but also kind of the freedom of speech chain in many respects. And so I think there are different ways of it's not what you want to sell, it's what the other side wants to buy or receive, right? And then how do we bridge that gap? So how can I communicate that in such a way and say, hey, if you are pro-free speech, you are anti-censorship, here's an opportunity for you. If you need a strong development community, here's an opportunity for you. If you are looking for, in many ways, ease of use by way of, it's an EVM-based chain, here you go. If you are looking for financial opportunities, here you go. And I think one of the things, and I think Richard's tweet alludes to this a little bit, is also privacy chain. It's going to become more and more prominent in the coming years ahead, as it becomes readily apparent. The thing which brings many of us freedom can also be wielded against us. And there's a lot of chatter about CBDC and the like. The reality of it is, we live in an on-chain world for anyone who's tuning into this or thinking about living in an on-chain world. A lot of what you do is ultimately traceable once you start figuring out certain pieces of the puzzle. So we talk, I know you and I had some great chats around the conference about privacy-minded solutions and tools and things you can do to make it a little more challenging for somebody to potentially dox you or track your wallet, out to how do you keep your sort of TradFi solutions more private on that front. I think there's going to be a real opportunity for PulseChain to be the de facto privacy chain. And even if it's just volume being routed through PulseChain to be routed back to other chains to help obscure things or help keep things private, I think that's going to be an opportunity there as well. So you've got green candles, technical solutions, privacy solutions, development opportunities, networking, collaboration, and I think it's not just one thing. We have an array of things that can be used to help bring and onboard people onto the chain.
Yeah, great points. I think I would just add, sense of community, sense of, again, place. People, a lot of people are looking for a place to go do good work. They're looking for a place to where they can see their whatever they do matters. Like they can actually contribute to a cause they're interested in, just like any other thing in the world, just like your job, just like, your community, just like your just in general, like whatever organization do you like helping and you want to succeed, if you want to make your part of your purpose or your ideals come to life, this is the ecosystem to do it. And then just the potential, just the potential is probably like the most beaten down word at this point. Well, potential, I've been waiting forever, but it is one of those. A lot of people think it is like an early Ethereum. A lot of people look around and see RH is not going away. He's probably not going to lose anything really. And this community itself has dug its heels in so deep into crypto that you can see us everywhere. You can see hexagons everywhere. You can see people building on PulseChain, trying to get on different services and bridges and on-ramps and everything else. And again, just the what I spoke about before, just the amount of people doing the networking events, doing the going to these exchanges, going to the different GitHub pages and trying to upvote things and making sure that people know PulseChain is here. We're not some scam chain, ghost chain. We're not some like ideal that's just like, oh yeah, pump and dump. Let's just get out of here real quick. We are here and we're not going away. And so having those voices out there, putting the word in and getting people excited about it, all the different groups and sub communities and everything else out there that hopefully will be a net positive over time as we all come together towards the green candles. We certainly hope so. I think that's the reason that even without green candles, we can show people like what we're here for and what we hope to all achieve with hashtag glory. Shout out to glory. Hopefully it'll be on the horizon.
And taking it in a slightly different direction, hypothetically speaking, all right, for the haters, doubters, and critics, assuming they're right, no one's forcing you to buy or participate. Clearly it struck a chord enough for some folks to be chiming in here with their criticism, which I appreciate. It helps me polish up my arguments. But assuming you're right, hey, congratulations, you win. You didn't risk anything. You didn't lose anything. But what if you're wrong? What if there's even a 1% chance you're wrong? Doesn't that warrant some level of exposure just in case? Because I remember back in the day, I'm like, oh, this magic internet money thing, like it's just never going to take. This is stupid, right? And fast forward as I became more educated, learned more about it, saw the opportunity, saw the potential of what these different chains and blockchain solutions and distributed ledger technologies can ultimately bring to the people. I said, wait a minute, okay, it is insane to not have a certain degree of exposure. So your risk to the downside at this point, fairly minimal. Your upside risk, virtually incalculable. Why not roll the dice and take the chance?
Asymmetric risk. That is a great description of this ecosystem and crypto in general, but especially the place that, again, is literally aligned for the tech and the price appreciation. I don't know. It sounds pretty good to me. Everyone places their bets where they want to, but yeah, where mine's placed.
Like we were saying earlier, right? Richard has a habit of making his haters look very, very foolish over time.
I've tried to. I probably have over 200, probably close to 300 vintage RH videos on the channel at this point. If you ever want to peruse them, I got a clip every Thursday and sometimes Sundays coming out until July this year, I believe. And it's been going on. That's a project I started almost a couple of years ago now. So if you ever want to hear what he has to say and hear him talk to and win a lot of arguments against people, bring your heroes here to die. That was a phase that he dominated pretty well as well. Now to the face ripping part. Everyone's been waiting for. Guitar Gardens, please tell us what proof you have the faces will be ripped, because reality says no. No pressure, Twinkie, but you got some bullish data for us?
Yeah, I've got some information, and I'll also say a lot of this is predicated on the background macro environment. So a little earlier in the show, we were talking about, hey, there's all this debt that's got to get refinanced, liquidity injections, liquidity cycles. So I want to pull up a couple pieces of, or a handful of pieces of information based on some things that I had sketched out previously, and also shout out some folks who have come up with a way better, more modernized incarnation of some of this stuff. So to that end, if I could trouble you, Max, to pull up the spreadsheet I am sharing.
Boom.
Thank you very much. All right. So there's a lot of assumptions that go on in this document, and I just kind of want to outline some of the assumptions here. So first and foremost,
real quick, zoom in. Is it possible to zoom in a little bit?
Sure. Let me blow that up a little bit more. Stand by. I'm going to assume it cascades over to your view as well.
There you go. Perfect.
All right, cool. All right, let me scroll up over here. So again, a lot of this is predicated on where we think the overall crypto total market cap will go, which will require more investors and more speculators to embrace being risk on. Just want to acknowledge that. So if you look at how Bitcoin's been performing, where we put in new all-time highs over 6 figures, right? Once upon a time, it was a dream and a meme. Fast forward, it's happened. It's a reality. I realize it's chopping. It's probably going to be a little uncomfortable for some folks through some of these rides up and down. But I think it was Michael Saylor, who said, volatility is vitality. And in many cases, that volatility is your opportunity. I think it was Alex Hormozy, who said, opportunity only looks like opportunity in retrospect. In the moment, it looks like risk. So to that end, let me start running people through some assumptions. Number one is ETH dominance. So for folks who are not familiar with that concept, if you look at how much is the total crypto market cap worth, currently it's floating at around 2.7 odd trillion today. Then of that percentage, how much of that is tied up in Ethereum? And we can take a look at some different elements here. So this is ETH dominance, which is how much of the total crypto market cap is made up by Ethereum. Currently, it's sitting at 8.62%, but this is not the all-time low. You can see way back here in 2019, looks like it was about 7.62%. Definitely had some chop, then it was generally up, and now it's been sliding back down. There may be assorted reasons for that: more competition, more dilution, more tokens on the market. And like, my point here, though, is you have seen, one, we've been lower, and two, as more liquidity came into the system, the Ethereum dominance rose as high as what, 21 odd percent. I am not going to make the assumption here it's going to come back to 21%. I'm going to be a little more conservative, average out some numbers and say, hey, for argument's sake, let's assume it's going to go roughly 12% plus minus a few percent. So going back to this, we've got that ETH dominance at roughly 12%. Then how did I get the ETH total supply? Well, there's a fun website over here, which is ultrasound.money, which has got a bunch of different data points on here, but you can see it's calculating the total supply roughly. In this case, it was about 25 seconds ago, so it's periodically updating. It also gives you some information on how the burns are being impacted, supply growth and issuance, but for the math we're doing today, we really just need the current supply. So under those conditions, if assuming 12% dominance and roughly speaking this level of ETH supply, we can start making some projections on some different elements of where we think the total market cap goes. So in this case, you can do certain things like analyze some charts, use wonderful things like Elliott waves, Fibonacci extensions, and the like. I'm going to overly simplify, say, hey, for some very primitive Fibonacci extensions, these are some of the different ballpark values we can potentially land on. And so if this is the ETH dominance and this is roughly the total supply and the total market cap goes to this, then you can start to back end into, okay, this is where I think we're going to wind up with the overall ETH price. So again, we're really reliant upon more capital flowing into the market, and then how might that cascade and flow into other things. So along those lines, this is some of this information is a little bit out of date. I'm just going to quickly shrink this down a little bit so people can see some of the assumptions I've made here. Is I took a look at what do we know for certain sacrifice wallets and the like, where they have this number of ETH in it. Then where do we think the ETH price winds up? Let's also make the assumption that certain aspects of liquidity are going to be redirected, which we've already started to see by way of ink emission manipulation and like an APRs changing on some of those PulseX pools. What percentage of benevolence do we think would be brought to the market? 50%. I don't think people are going to latch on, oh, when ETH hits this price, he's got $1 billion, or this wallet has $2 billion, or 11 quadrillion dollars, whatever the number ends up being. We need to make, for conversation's sake, some level of assumption that some of that might get deployed back into the market to prop up the price or drive the green candles, because Richard's in it for glory. So it's not going to be a 100% of that money gets deployed to the pool, because to your point, Max, people are looking for life-changing gains. I'm never going to fault somebody for positively changing their life as the opportunity arises. But my assumption here is roughly half of it would get deployed over time, because the other half needs to be kept in reserve to potentially continue to drive the charts, prop up the charts, or work through some other elements. So again, these numbers are slightly out of date for some of the calculations I've made here. My assumption was through sucking out 80% of the liquidity on this, then, and also having roughly at $6,000 ETH and a certain total market cap and blah, 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 then if I got $1 billion to work with, I'm going to take that 500 odd mil and do some assorted injections to buy up the price, stabilize the chart. Certainly there'll be some more friction, and shout out to Runeskis and some of his folks. We'll get to his calculator and his team's calculator in a few minutes. But I could sit there and say, okay, if I'm going to spend roughly, let's say 500 mil, then under those conditions, this is how I drive a 3.5 cent pulse. If I drive nearly 3.6 cent pulse under those conditions, then if I look at those ratios today and say, okay, if I'm going to wind up with like 3.6 cent pulse, what's the knock-on impact to PulseX, Inc, Hex, eHex with some degree of reflexivity? Again, this is not a complete mathematical breakdown of every aspect of how PulseChain interoperates with each other and how different liquidity pools impact each other and arbitrage bots. We'll get to somebody's tool, again, shout out to Runeskis, where they've taken a lot of that extra information and layered it into it. So this is my back of envelope math I basically worked on months ago. And I was like, hey, this doesn't seem as crazy to me as people think. I look at a lot of this from an engineering perspective. If this is what you want, or this is the desired outcome, under what conditions does that start to become feasible or possible? And then you just start solving for the conditions. So I'm going to take a pause here on this one. I've thrown down some crazy moon math numbers. I know people are going to be salivating at that. I'm going to slightly rein those back in for a second. Questions on your side, Max? Anything here jumping out at you?
Yeah, just looking at, so the ETH, are you thinking the ETH 6K instead of, I know a lot of people are calling for like 9K, 11K, 15K, like in that range too. Is this just more conservative estimate you're thinking?
Yeah, so I've got some reason to believe safely, because I don't want to, have completely salivating. And side note, if you are in a life-changing gains situation, I personally encourage viewers to take advantage of it. I wouldn't necessarily fully exit my positions. Hey, you do what's best for you and yours in the grand scheme of things. There's also a good chance you will not have the opportunity to have as much Pulse, PulseX, Inc, Hex as you do today. You may never get those bags back. So you have to make the decision that's best for you and yours. As far as my assumptions, I think 5 trillion-ish for the total market is a conservative estimate. I see Large wants me to make it bigger. So there you go, man. 5 trillion is my conservative estimate for total market cap. I think there's a pretty strong argument for 6 to 7 trillion. And then once we start talking 9, 10 trillion, to me, that's a little concerning for a different fashion. It probably means most governments around the world are just printing fiat currency like crazy. So I'd say somewhere between the realm of like 5 to 7 trillion is a probably safe bet. Again, though, this also depends on ETH dominance, because we've seen ETH dominance be north of 12%. So if more money this is a lot of the if this, then that type conversation. If more money comes flooding into the market, and all of a sudden we're at like a 16% type situation on there, then those numbers start to shift pretty significantly and pretty quickly. So there's a question of how much total money enters into crypto. Of the money that goes into crypto, how much of it winds up in ETH to drive the ETH price? And then there's a lot of assumptions that go into this in order to come up with some of these numbers, which in turn will start to drive some of those different price points. So that's a really long answer for, I don't know. I'm outlining a range of possibilities, right? Like it's the answer is not always a discrete number. Sometimes the answer is an algorithm.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking about the reserve piece. So what made you come up with, you said 50% reserve, you think is that of the total benevolent whales or just of the SAC wallet?
Yeah, let me hop back over to that. That is not, let's say, total benevolent whales, like just a assumption on really the SAC wallet. So to your point, though, there are other whales splashing around in the ecosystem, or other whales who are interested in this space, and because they're looking for, some of them are looking for glory, some of them are looking to pump their own bag, some are looking for entertainment, any number of different motivations and factors on that. I figured, hey, 50% is kind of a safe bet. So again, a lot of assumptions here. One, they're going to have some level of benevolence, and they're going to share. They're in it for glory. 2, liquidity reduction and redirection. Maybe it's only 50%. Maybe it's 99%. Unknown. But this should start to give some of the viewers an idea of what is possible, not what is guaranteed. Also, I would be negligent in just me being me if I didn't sit here and say, just because you see the price on screen does not mean you're going to be able to cash out your entire bag at that level. So I encourage people to continue to be educated on things like liquidity pools, slippage, all those wonderful things. Just because you see the number on screen doesn't mean you're walking away with that number.
Yeah, definitely. I think, what was it, Hex at the peak? Remember Richard on stream doing like, oh yeah, you can sell with like, what was it, 2%, 1, 2, 3, 4% slippage. You could sell $1 million worth of Hex into stables around that time. So yeah, I mean, at this point, if we do get this massive glory run, do you think it'll be, of course, a lot of people will still be in FOMO mode, like, why would you sell now? We're just getting started. But the people who do want to take profits, do you think the liquidity will be, on PulseChain through stables with bridged in ETH or otherwise? You expect the bridge numbers and the on ramps to have plenty of liquidity in order to cash out?
Yeah, it's I think a lot of it's going to depend on the bag, right? Because also too, I think some folks are going to want to leave certain funds on chain, and certain assets on chain, and not cash out back to fiat, because they're going to be folks that have like hundreds of millions, billions of a given token that they're unlikely to be able to get again in future cycles. So that's really the question there. I think we'll see certain things like maybe more loan-driven solutions on that. I think people are going to embrace single-sided pools to help with aspects of cashing out without smashing charts. And as far as total liquidity, I believe the total number will be ultimately higher for the chain than what the liquidity ultimately can support if everyone ran for the hills. So the kind of analogy would be somewhat of a bank run, which is why I think it's going to be important for people to have a system, a process, a set of rules where I'm going to stick to this and I'm going to take some off the table, take profits on the way up. Don't sit there like, I mean, you've seen it, I've seen it. Oh, it's only a 2x away, and then I get my round 1 million, 10 million, $100 million. I'm just going to sit there for the 2x. So you're going to round trip the whole thing. The people who did well last cycle are some of the people who, generally speaking, took profits along the way and secured some level of profitability on the way up. So to me, the math doesn't math out for everyone to exit out at like, a 15-cent PulseChain and all the related cascading impacts. It might be possible. I'd have to defer to folks more well-versed in cumulative and collective liquidity on chain. I just personally don't see it at this point in time, but that's just based on what I see today. As conditions change, so too do probabilities and outcomes.
15-cent PulseChain. Wow, that's music to my ears.
I think the numbers are crazier, and I know some of the conversations I've had with other folks. Shout out Axis. He's potentially even far more bullish than I am. I just sit there and say, under what conditions does this become possible? Because then as a viewer, as a user of the chain, as an investor, as a builder, you can start to look for those conditions to be met. Hey, this means people are coming in. This means people are starting to rotate out. This means that, hey, we've got this bright, shiny, prime new opportunity. I'm getting in at the ground floor. So I always like to look at conditions.
And we'll wrap it up too. Just on the ratios and the numbers and the moon math part. Can you just give us a summary of what that looks like? Just some of that, maybe a couple highlights. We get ink at wow, yeah. You want to just go through a couple and are we getting that $10 hex? What's going on?
Yeah. So I'll bring up one more calculator because, again, this is something I worked on months ago, and then I saw some other folks doing a way more updated and complete version of it where they really drilled into liquidity pools and started looking at slippage and the like. So this is my quick back of envelope math, and I'll somewhat bring people down to earth. I wanted to outline primarily the assumptions on how I started getting here. ETH dominance, supply, where does the total market cap go? That will really have a series of cascading impacts on that. As far as ratios today, it's really, I'll say simple. Based on today's prices and assuming these ratios hold true, if we get this set price in Pulse, then this is the related impact. So if we go to 3.6 cents Pulse, assuming those ratios hold true, and they won't, there'll be friction, there'll be arbitrage bots that'll clean up aspects of this, then these are the potential cascading impacts on that front. My personal plan is, as we start getting to each their own, you don't have to do anything I say. Hey, you're all capable of making your own decisions. I'm going to start taking some profits more significantly on the way up at like a 0.5 cent Pulse, 2 cent Pulse, and I'm not going to sit around and wait for some magic number to try to exit out. I think that's a tactical error because I know the size of my bags, and I know for a fact there are folks who have far bigger bags than I do. What does that mean potentially for them? I actually think it's an interesting double-edged sword in the sense that they potentially have the opportunity to start their profit-taking drip feed sooner than I do because they have more collective mass on that front. But it also means they can't take as much in one shot proportionately, potentially, because they would run the risk of slippage and shooting themselves in the foot by way of their own bag. So in certain respects, some of those liquidity constraints actually also somewhat function as kind of a whale trap for certain things. All right, let me quickly hop over and share this tab, and I'll throw the link in chat for your viewers over here. So in this case, Runeski's and his team, they built a more advanced price appreciation simulator. So you can start to look at, hey, this is what we have available for potentially a sort of liquidity deployment. So you can see like PulseChain reserve based on ETH price and some other calculations. So, where's this all going? It's pretty dynamic and elastic. So if they had like 1.3 billion to deploy for conversation's sake, well, let's go with a more moderate number. Let's go with like 6,000. which by their estimation for what they're tracking would give about $1 billion to deploy. They have a reason to believe that the optimal deployment would actually be into Hex and PulseX. And they do outline in their site some of the how it works and what are the overall conditions and like. So based on last 24 hours of pricing. So if I calculate that out based on their tools, then this is where they start to end up with like Hex to $588, PulseX to 90 cents, right? Which to me looks a little wildly bullish on that. But having done some of the math out myself for my own, let's say spreadsheets and the like, I can see how that kind of works out. And that is, again, based on a long series of conditions. They do outline, hey, how this works. And you can go through and read the documentation yourself. They talk about the overall reflexivity, rotation of certain assets into other pools, rinse, repeat, arbitrage bots based on the math they have available. So that to me looks very optimistic on that front. You can also sit here and say, okay, what if it's an even split? And so I'm going to deploy 6,000 more uniformly to prop up different aspects of the ecosystem, or just into ink, or like 34-cent pulse, $280 hex. And like, okay, again, I have to reiterate this. Ooh. That is the price you see on screen. It does not necessarily mean you will be able to exit your bag out in full at that price. Even a wick counts, right? Because it's going to print that all-time high. Even a wick will print to that candle.
$280 hex. Oh, man. That's
yeah, we're going to Applebee's after that one.
We're going, there may be an Applebee's, maybe an Outback Steakhouse, maybe
Maybe you're buying them. Buying the chain.
Maybe, there might be a few more conferences at that point once we get the Hex Strategic Reserve, the White House.
Yes. Well. Yes. So regardless, even if you think, hey, I think your math is very flawed, or it's bullshit, or I don't trust this tool, regardless, take a step back, and is it generally directionally correct? And I think there's overwhelming evidence to prove that through a combination of overall price appreciation, money flowing into the total market, as well as clever liquidity adjustments and manipulation, we can drive prices far higher than people thought were possible. We've outlined a set of conditions. When those conditions are met, these numbers become met. So just watch the conditions, and that'll let you know what's coming.
Let's go. Bullish conditions in 2025. Awesome.
That's it, my man. That's it.
Oh, well, Twinkie, you've made us bullish again. Thanks for that. What is it before we wrap up here? Yeah, what do you want to take us out on? What is something that again, during these times, the last 15 minutes, everyone's forgotten about the price down right now. So thanks for that. What is it? What are we looking forward to this year? And in order to get us into some of these moon mass scenarios that we would like to see so much.
Yeah. All right. Let me kind of read the proverbial tea leaves on this stuff and try to speculate and prognosticate a little bit. So going back to the earlier section of the stream, I outlined the overall debt that's got to get refinanced or paid off. I outlined, hey, we're probably on track to reduce or eliminate quantitative tightening before, my mind, middle of the year. So at that point in time, in principle, rates come down and there should be more liquidity flowing throughout the collective crypto markets on that front. That'll have a series of knock-on impacts, which should, in principle, start to drive the ETH price higher, culminating in more positive inflows and positive price appreciation in the PulseChain ecosystem. So I'm very much watching the macro background on that front. Let's see here. Outside of that, Pulse, in my mind, is definitely at least hitting 1 cent. No two ways about it. It'll have a series of knock-on impacts that ripple out into the rest of the Richard Hart ecosystem. I think life-changing gains for many people are forthcoming, but only if you take the risk and put some skin in the game. And no reason to not have some level of exposure to the Richard Hart ecosystem. I think it's more short-sighted and incorrect and foolish to have zero exposure versus even 1% of your exposure. You can just put 1% of your weekly paycheck in, 1% of your portfolio, and I think you'll be very pleased. Fast forward, go ahead, bookmark it, time, date, stamp it. We'll see how we are holding up in 12 months and how people are doing on that front. So I remain very bullish on the Richard Hart ecosystem. I'm seeing the builders come in. I'm seeing the opportunities there. I'm seeing the networking. I'm seeing the social media presence. And look, He defeated the SEC. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It wasn't just a errant random dismissal or we're just dropping the case. They took the L. So don't forget about that. So I see no reason to be anything other than bullish. We might want to debate the when, but I don't think anyone can sit here and debate the how.
Yeah, very compelling. And yeah, they took the L. We took the W. We're gonna hopefully get a lot more W's this year. And yeah, so much stuff. Yeah, if the first time you're tuning in the channel, you've not watched a lot of bull streams before, you're gonna be like, what are you all talking about? Like what am I supposed to be excited about? There are so many different things. A lot of creators talk about on X, we talk about on YouTube. I mean, in this stream itself. So there's no lack of information. Like we're trying to, again, show the idea, show you the perspective, show you the data and the moon mass and all that fun stuff behind it. Again, it's totally up to you if you want to participate. But boy, if we do end up going to the moon, it's like the kind of like FOMO, but like I don't want to miss it either. So I don't know what's the word for FOMO. If you've been in the ecosystem for a long time, you just like you're here and aligned for glory. I'll just say it like that. Twinkie, where can people find more of your stuff and content? I put your YouTube link in the chat. You got X, YouTube. What do you got?
Yep. X, YouTube, Telegram. Those are super active on Telegram. Feel free to tag me or drop me a message. I may regret it later on, but I'm pretty accessible through Telegram. Twitter, YouTube. You can also see me stream roughly once a week over on Crypto Boogie's channel. He's my stream partner. We do the tacos and kimchi show. Large, I'll send you the OnlyFans link a little later today, man. I just launched that. It's got a lot of feet pics and stuff on it. So at Mr. Angry Twinkie on all the socials, that's the easiest way to find me. Or you can show up to things like Pulse 369 conference and some of these other conferences that I'll be make some appearances at throughout the year. So how about yourself, Max? Aside from right here on this wonderful YouTube channel, where else can the people find you?
At RHMax on X. That's just the way it sounds. I think YouTube and X are the two platforms. I still have TikTok and Instagram, but I don't really post on there much anymore. Local meetups from time to time, interstate or broad meetups, PulseChain Hex conferences this year. We'll be all over the place, so it'll be a good time. RHMax.tv. That's a link. It's on the business card here. See, well, not that there's a business, but it's on the card.
There it is.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, I was giving that out the conference as well. Money print a go burr. That's what I like to see this year. But thanks for joining us, man. Great show.
Happy to be here
with you in Vegas. And yeah, are you not entertained, Chad? Are you not entertained? You went from price down to what if price go up to okay, maybe hope you all have a good weekend out there. Hopefully it'll give you some good material to chew on. So that's all we got for you today. Scivive and 5555. We are out.